Hello everyone, this is Fantastic Worlds. Welcome back to Secret World Interludes, and as you can see, they've got a new pet. There was a bit of a hurricane sale during the recent deluge in North Carolina, and I picked up a new pair of glasses and the rain cloud kitty, and who's just too cute to be believed. Anyways, so this particular episode is dealing with the Savage Coast, or at least the coast-like part of it. Now, there's the tunnel that leads back to Kingsmouth proper, but here, of course, is another one of those accidents and an attempted police blockade that did not go too well. As you can see, the sheriff originally was trying to set it up so that he could cut off both the tunnels with a cop at either end, and then hold off the zombie horde, but I believe she didn't anticipate quite the numbers she was dealing with. In any case, the first stop of entrance as we came here is the Overlook Motel. As you can see, it's got the Eye of the Illuminati upon it, which means I guess the Island Fathers aren't too much onto secrecy if they're going to be having the local motel. But as you can see, it's a bit abandoned and having, shall we say, it's had better days. Yeah, it's the focal point of the demonic invasion. Went over that in one of the earlier episodes of the Savage Coast, but yeah, this place ain't doing too well. Now, this sort of motel, the L-shaped version with the parallel parking here and the side-by-side rooms, this originally was a type that was done in the 1950s and 60s, and it was pretty common for a new form of travel that came down the highway. And you're seeing these vanish, of course, as time goes on, and, well, people demand better sort of accommodations. In fact, a lot of these older places are now been turned over for transient living. As you can see, room 13 here has issues. That is literally a door to hell. We'll be exploring that some other episode, but not today. But the only resident of the motel right now is the reporter Daniel Bach. Now, he's a probably Hunter S. Thompson analog here, but for one that understands the secret world as opposed to just the world of corruption that normally exists in our world. But let's see what Mr. Bach has to say for himself. So, Mr. Bach, tell me about yourself.
Call me whack. Everyone does. Just don't call me a thrill seeker. No. Perspective. Car surfing's a thrill. Sprinting across railway bridges is a thrill. War reporting isn't a thrill. It's an assignment. It's a duty. It's why they don't hand out Pulitzers for base jumping.
Legitimate point.
It's about redefining your view of mortality for yourself and for the other guys. To tell people it's not indiscriminate death, period. It's indiscriminate death, comma. Someone has to be the hell chaser. When I finally found the real thing, I hardly felt surprised.
As you can tell, he's probably on something at giving him a little stimulation.
Turns out that hell is a whole lot like home, no matter that I've been desensitized by mass graves and hate crimes and Fox News and fucking Burger King. Yeah, it tastes like bleach fumes, and the way the light falls is all wrong. Too red and too overexposed. It's a whole lot like home. I don't see any great cosmic moral in it.
So tell me about hell.
You want a page from my memoirs, bud?
The hell?
I first saw it in Afghanistan. Down the caves, the real old caves, the ones the Taliban dynamited the shit out of along with those big Buddhas. Opened something they couldn't close again.
Interesting. I'm wondering if this was in 2012, so I guess it was during the War on Terror, but it's rather political. And, well, considering he's an analog of a, shall we say, interesting political reporter of his time, I don't feel surprised at all.
Finest military ordnance the taxpayers' money can fund barely closed it. Picture, if you will, a squad of huge-ass Marines doing all they could not to piss their pants, praying to every god in the directory. I just squatted in my own mess and wrote until my hands seized up.
And then?
Gibberish. Total shit, that's what it turned out I wrote. That's what the camp docs made me too. Check it off on the battlefield trauma, heat exhaustion, second-degree sunburn. That's hallucination.
Well, somebody back there is crashing the interview. Well, it's an interesting concept because I've seen it done in horror a lot, where in the military battlefield, you see things. The occult bleeds through to the madness of humanity. In fact, I've heard some real-life stories, oh, hi there, about strange phenomenon. There was one in Afghanistan, if anybody's interested in that, I'll provide a link, mention it in the comments, and I'll provide a link to the Paranormal Scholars' take on it, where they saw somebody who wasn't quite human in the distance, and then later came across a completely massacred village. And I don't mean with bullets and grenades, I mean ripped apart to pieces. But there's a long details about, you know, how the hell we make may attract the hell of others.
Gave us a lot of prescription drugs dumped in the desert. Seriously. Take two if visions of fucking howling, screaming purgatory persist. I don't know what happened to the other guys. Let's say I took it better than most.
Yeah, they're probably not doing too well, dead or raving. That's how most Lovecraftian protagonists end up.
Yeah, I know I've been busting your chops, but that's just me. I'm an asshole, unrepentant. I appreciate the company, no shit. You don't get a lot of it when you're going a million miles an hour, F5 in the world every 10 seconds. If I lived to do an autobiography, it would have been an RSS feed.
Okay, that definitely dates it. Be doing Twitter now, I guess?
There are two people who really got my hang. My grandfather had told me I was always jumping freight trains straight to hell, and Claudia, my wife. Maybe you read it, or for the Village Voice before the buyout. Oh yeah, good. Same wavelength, didn't want kids, gymnastic shit in the bedroom. Things weren't the same after I did Georgia. The country, not the dancer at the fifth age. Claudia was totally accommodating.
Now I want to know more.
Sitting in the back of an open Jeep in the rain with hell on my mind, I knew just where to find it. Someone, something was calling me there. We had a real special moment in the ruins. Glasses haven't come off since.
Yeah, what's behind those glasses? May not quite be still human eyes, but as you can see, here's the manager's office. I'm guessing Bach's squatting here, and now there's an old legend about the fact that if you leave static running like this long enough on television, the old transmission types, not the cable, sometimes things would get through. It's probably just your mind, but white noise. It's a hell of a background to work with. But anyways, sorry about that brief interruption. But anyways, yes. Now the rest of the rooms are boarded off, but what's more important is the beach itself. And as you can see, the area is sort of a dimensional intersection. And things are leaking through. That has to be attended to. Now, this used to be known as Red Oak Beach. In fact, Edgar mentioned the red oaks around here. If you recall, Junkyard Edgar indicated his mother used to work here, or perhaps even own the place. But in 1987, 5 residents disappeared in mysterious circumstances, believed murder. Now, that's the exact same year that the Wendigo murdered 2 children, and of course the resident of the Black House, the independent witch there, was accused of the crime and killed for it. Yo, pardon me, I'm just cleaning out as I go. But as you can see, the area itself is suffering from demonic overlap. These portals from hell, which you can temporarily close to the power of Gaia, since of course you are operating as a defender of this dimension. Now granted, Gaia gave you the power to deal with the Dreamers, the Lovecraftian invasion, but I don't think she's much for feeling upset about this particular invasion being interrupted. Let's face it, these guys aren't local and they're not having good thoughts on their head. Now, the larger portals, the ones that these things come through, these are being stabilized. Hang on a second. By these resonators, this sort of technology from hell that's used to create these portals that allow the bigger creatures to slip through. Now, here's where things get a little funny. You'll notice that on this beach, the portals have been set up, probably about 3 major portals and a dozen minor portals. But at the same time, the Draug, yeah, they're still trying to come in. Yeah, here you go. Forces of hell and the forces of the Lovecraftian horrors are fighting over who gets to mess up this planet first. Excuse me. And they're still coming in trying to do their invasion stuff, but this is one of the reasons I'm not placing the priority in stopping this invasion. In fact, I'll probably come back and do it later, possibly after I've gotten the island itself is kind of pacified, because these guys are doing my job for me. As you can see, if you go further out here, got the same collection of brood witches and undead that they've been bringing in, and one really big guy over there. Yes, Crabzilla. Let's see if we can do something about that. The Marooned Oarsman. Well, you're at rest, pal. Odds are... Oh, poor... Oh, you're a rain cloud kitty, so I guess you can handle water. Cool. But yeah, get any further out and you're looking at the raw tempest of the fog itself. Now, I don't think you can actually get through the fog normally. That sort of thing comes later. In any case, you can see the lighthouse over there in the distance. We'll be getting to that soon enough. And I'm going to do a jump cut, because I think you've seen just about everything you need to in this particular little zone. Just a moment. Okay, so just south of on Solomon Road here is the house that contains yet another secret Illuminati basement. We covered that, however, in our pursuit of Beaumonts. Now, heading down the road, we get to go through some nice old pine woods. It really does remind me of New England. Bit of a maple here on the left. And as you can see, as you're heading down, you get zombie joggers. Now, some of them are doing a pretty good clip. This one, however, seems to have not figured out what a lamppost is. Now, it says Innsmouth Track and Field, which means they all come from the Academy. We'll be covering the Academy itself, because it deserves its own singular episode, a bit further down the road. Good grief. Sometimes just student athletes cannot help themselves, apparently. Now, this right here is the suburbs, so to speak, of Kingsmouth. Now, these sort of sections with their Cape Cod style houses, the kindergarten over here, expansive park, this is where you might say the real money in, that isn't, of course, the ultra-rich within town. Ugh. Gods, I really hate the sound of that kindergarten. This is the sort of place where, you know, the people well-to-do live in a town like this. You know, the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants. And as you can see, this road itself is going to lead over to Blue Mountains. Now, down here by the gas station, of course, in the Cycle, which is an Oriachi company, of course, because Oriachi owns everything the Illuminati doesn't. They might even own the majority of them. And as you can see, everybody still has their Halloween decorations out. Now, back here at the kindergarten is the only living resident of this suburb at the moment, besides, of course, ourselves and other operatives, if we can really consider us to be alive, the shaman, John Wolfe. Now, interesting character. He likes to spin yarns about, Hey. And, of course, his wolf, which, you know, don't eat my cat, please. He likes to spin yarns about the, shall we say, spooky background of Solomon Island, and his missions will provide the most data about the place and the people and the history. But let's get to know the man.
Boone and I, we go way back. We may disagree on many things, often and vehemently, but we do agree on what's important. We share a common goal. As long as there's darkness, we will carry the torch.
Now,
here, everywhere.
Right, he's an independent operator, probably working for Gaia as a shaman. Now, one of the things to consider about him and Boone is that Boone claims to be the last of the cowboys, and it's a pretty good chance that Gaia has extended their lifespan. John, as a shaman, has weathered it better, but if you listen to both of them and their gravelly voices, it's actually a little-known fact of biology. The longer a person lives, the more deeper and gravelly the voice gets. So an immortal human who just prevents from being aged, but still, you know, entropy weathers them down, is going to get more gravelly as time goes on. Just one of those little details that I like.
Nothing will grow if the seed be not sown. I see us as gardeners of the mind. We instill hope where we can, a will to fight where possible, a spirit to persevere where necessary.
And like most shamans in this game, he talks in riddles.
How did we end up here? This is where it all begins. There are places worse off, more dangerous, darker.
We'll get there.
It begins here. It begins now. Where it all leads, I don't know. Neither is Boone. We're going to see it through. Wherever it takes us.
I don't know if they actually show up later in the game. I don't think they do, but it would be interesting if they did cycle back in some new material, because they're really interesting characters. I mean, there's so many interesting characters in this game you just briefly see as you run past.
Human life is like the dew of morning. The body of man is like a flicker of lightning existing only to return to nothingness. But that doesn't mean we won't take up arms when that infinite darkness comes to claim us. It's not the sun that threatens the dew of mankind or electricity coursing through clouds. No. It's something unnatural, something old and angry and bitter. And it has no place here.
Interesting way to look at it. So, let's talk about his relationship with the secret world.
Before I
hi.
learned the mysteries of this world, I saw mountains as mountains, oceans as oceans, and earth as earth. When I began to gain knowledge, I came to the point where I saw that mountains are not mountains, oceans are not oceans, and earth is not earth. But now that I've got its very substance, I'm at rest. Once again, I see mountains as mountains, oceans as oceans, earth as earth.
Well, he's talking about the concept of enlightenment, the understanding that you find the more transcendent experiences, the existence that exists below the physical, which this is just a manifestation, like I expressed with World Tree being the actual world and this being the shadow it creates. But then you have to accept it and then move on, as stunning as that can be.
The secret world is truly not. It's the world in front of us. Above and beneath us, no more secret than the sun and the moon and the sky.
Interesting point.
Of course, there are places and things concealed to most. I lived once in a place I cannot return to. Can't find again. I've
Busy
searched
place.
everywhere, but it's lost to me. Many masters have told me that I'll only find it once I stop searching for it. But how can I? That's like asking a man blinded to stop looking for the sun. It's impossible.
I think I get what he's saying, but I wonder where he originally came from. If he has an extended life, it's odds are he's talking about perhaps a pre-European America.
I believe it has nothing to do with me searching for it or not. When Miracle wants me back, it will have me back. Not before then. So I keep searching. And one day, maybe, that place will reveal itself to me. Once again.
Miracle? No idea. Maybe we'll find further information out in the future. But yes, of course, as per usual, the Venetian Council and their worthless observers are here. Now, let's head over to this side, because I want to concentrate on the coast. Now, I'm calling this episode a Savage Coast because I'm dealing mostly with the eastern side of the island. And the reason I'm calling it thus the Savage Coast is that this is the area that faces out into open ocean. Now, if you're in Maine, of course, it's on the east coast. Therefore, the western coast, it faces more inland, kind of debatable given the odd geography of Maine, is a little more sheltered. And you'll see that to be the case as soon as we go through. And yep, here we go, another Cape Cod-style house. Now, the Atlantic Island Park, yeah, it's got enough backstory that it also will be its own episode. But for the moment, let's head down this dirt path. Now, these sort of fire lanes, of course, minus the bodies, are pretty common in Maine. A lot of places, these were what was cut by the lumber company when they plowed through. So people just started using them as their own transport, as unfinished roads. More zombie joggers, and so a lot of them have never been upgraded. Now, here's an interesting place. This house here was set up by the Phoenicians as a safe house. Now, there's a bit of a paradox with the Phoenicians. Okay, we're definitely not dealing with the haunted houses, because I hate that. Now, here's something a little odd. What's back here? Hello? This must be one of the entry points that they used, because the Phoenicians probably want to get out by the ocean. Huh. What are you? Oh, this is a nice ocean view down here. Where exactly is it supposed to be? But this must be where they were planning to extract, the Phoenicians being sailors, of course, but there's a bit of a paradox when it comes to that. I'll explain to that when I get to the amusement park, but these guys were here to steal the plans for the amusement park, but if you go over that mission, if you go over Nathaniel Winter's actual documentation, ooh, there's a big one. You'll find that he bought the plans from the Phoenicians, so why would they steal something they already had? Either that's a paradox, or the Phoenicians were just acting as a go-between between two other agents, which is, of course, always possible. But I find it interesting to check these out. But yes, this, the mid-coast, nice secret harbor here, is where the Phoenicians were likely choosing to operate. They began their mission before the craziness happened, and now they find themselves stranded on the island and with a bunch of other super empowered individuals. Yeah, let's deal with this version of Crabzilla, shall we? Sat strike. Ah, come on. Sat strike. Ooh, you survived it. Well, that's just annoying. Alright then. Thank you for your donation. But yeah. Now, the lights up here also give me a kind of indication that the area was being maintained as a covert in and out. Of course, the Phoenicians, knowing the power of the island and the Illuminati's hold on it being somewhat weak, would attempt to probably come in here and steal information. It's just the apocalypse got in the way of the last mission. Okay, jump cut to the next section. Okay, so we're continuing down this roughly unnamed road, and as you can see, we've gone from, shall we say, road to track. And if you head down to here, you'll find an abandoned car. Now, this is Sam Krieg's car. When you're doing his final mission, you'll find out that he crashed this car on the route to the lighthouse, given information by the loony fan that he'd been here. So, there's the thing about Sam Krieg's story, it's kind of weird. Now, enough. Sam was here, of course, heading here, of course, before the actual apocalypse, but he was alerted by an individual, a fan whose red house we passed earlier, that something of the island's weird history, and he came here to do research. Now, Krieg, this is before the fog, had the idea to come to, of course, the lighthouse. Now, what's interesting is that he set himself up there with a bunch of supplies before the fog. We know this because when I interviewed the sheriff, she and Krieg were safe from the fog because they were above it. That actually extends above it. Now, this area down here, of course, is reduced to little more than jogging tracks. In fact, you'll find a lot of the zombie joggers here. And we'll head down to that section. But, yes, this haunted... I don't know what it is. My guess is it's some sort of snack bar, perhaps? Ooh. Look and you seek and you shall find. A scant few souls escaped the fog by chance. On trembling feet they stepped out and saw their town turn to nightmare painting. An unstill life in waterlogged meat. The empty streets, silence turned to sobs, sobs to shriek. Those who vanished with the fog returned as the shambling dead. Some of the living shook transfixed by the rotting stench as their loved ones tore them to pieces. 2 more entries to go on that one. But my guess is that it's some sort of tourist place, like a snack bar or visitor center. It's pretty ruined right now, but this, as you can see, given that there's a public sign here, the lighthouse itself would be a tourist site. Now, the lighthouse is an operational one, but it's also automated, which is how most in America are these days, in fact. We usually, I don't know if there's any manned left. There might be a crew from the national park if the place, in fact, has been declared a tourist area. And on the west coast, where I live now, there's quite a few of them that have a gift shop at the bottom and a tour every now and then on the inside. Let's see. But as you can see, this doesn't look like it's up to code standards, but then most of Kingsmith really doesn't seem to have much maintenance. If you look down below, you can see, if you peer real close, that the same sort of monsters, the Drog, are there, but there's also some filth, infected zombies, the hulking zombies, which, since they've been released from Beaumont's control, randomly strike out of the Drog. We'll take a closer look in a moment, but for the moment, let's check out the lighthouse. Kingsmith Lighthouse. As you can see, it's on this small point of eroding land, and again, even before you get to the top, there's a really good view of, well, what would be a good view if it wasn't for the killer fog, but you get a pretty good image of the rest of the eastern coast of the island. Now, inside, you can head up this elevator. And you get an even better view. Wow. Now, can be a little much for people who might have a bit of vertigo issues, but it is good that you can see the engine does render the entire landscape as a single unit, which is one of the reasons why the loading times can be ridiculous, but then most of the time I get to edit those out for you. But here we are at Sam Krieg's little outpost, his survivalist outpost. Now, Sam's nuts. Let's just face it. He's been touched by the dark powers a la Alan Wake and could possibly be creating some of the horrors out there, which makes me wonder if we could cap him, whether or not that would help, or if he'd just write himself back to life. I got a comment that says that this might not be the real Sam Krieg, but an imitator, but that's something on the Dragon Path, and that's debatable. So, for the moment, let's let the man explain himself.
I've sold almost 100 million books. That number baffles even me. It's not like I write for anyone but myself. I'm not what you'd call a populist. Murder, rape, incest, and infanticide, sick, twisted, and cruel characters, suffering similar fates. Monsters, human and inhuman, haunting desolate spaces. A world controlled by misanthropes, torn asunder, reduced to bodily fluids, and still, people keep reading.
Horror. Always interesting the type of person it attracts, is it not? This, of course, SK might be, I've assumed is an analog of Stephen King, but one comes from Georgia instead of Maine, and one who destroyed his marriage or never had a marriage, and destroying his life with drugs and reckless firearm use.
Says a whole lot about the state of the world, doesn't it? My head isn't a good place for a visit, but you read one of my novels, that's exactly where you're going. I got a mean streak a mile wide, and the things I've seen make me loathe mankind. If we were to be wiped out tomorrow, all of us, I'd say not a minute too soon.
So he's pro Lovecraftian horrors.
Are you here for a signature? I'll make it out to Christ Almighty, since you're so intent on dying for our sins.
Yeah, bitter cynic and nihilist. Doesn't like the hero types because, well, let's face it, they make him look bad.
Can't say I'm surprised to find your type in this place, at this point in time. I've been writing about your world for decades, and the secrets speak to me, torture me in my dreams. My only relief was with the keyboard, or a bottle. But the madness would always catch up with me, always pull me back, and I don't have the capacity for ignorance. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't give back what I've learned. I can't come home after a long day at the office, beat the kids, fuck the wife, and pass out in front of a ball game with a case of Bud.
Oh, gee, I wonder why this guy isn't snapped up.
I envy the sheep and their infinite capacity for ignorance. You know what they say, idiocy is bliss.
Gods. That's too many people like this on the social media.
Kingsmith was founded by the Illuminati. This whole community, the entire island, was built by Kabbalists. They claim they picked this place because it was isolated, easy to protect. Bullshit. There's power here, begging to be released, and the Illuminati, they tried their best.
Go on.
In their arrogance, they believe they could tame it, use it somehow. That's why the entire island is riddled with esoteric markings and archaic symbols, with tunnels and secret rooms. They dug deep, and what they found scared them.
They dug too deep, as Gandalf would say. But yeah, it sounds like Illuminati to be tampering with the power of the Eldritch Abominations and not quite know what to do with it. You got to give them points, though. They did, once they realized it was bad, seem to try to keep a cap on it.
They wised up eventually, moved on to bigger and better things, left the town to rot. Those who remained, well, who would they leave behind? Not their best and brightest, I can guarantee you that. Those people, they kept feeding on the power until it permeated everything. The town, the forest, the school.
Go on, you're filling in a couple of gaps here.
That's what brought me here. To succumb myself in evil. To understand it. Learn about it. Write about it. But it seemed to have faded, like the paint on the picket fences. This place seemed no more cruel than any other small town on this blighted continent, filled with pettiness and jealousy and murderous thoughts, but human.
He's got quite a bit to say, so how long was he here, I wonder, before the hit?
Boy, was I wrong. I'd say I got more than I bargained for. But you might think I got exactly what I deserved. And you'd probably be right.
Got no argument for me. Let's see what his recollection of the fog was.
The day the fog rolled in, I stood up here in this ivory tower and watched it all. It came like an avalanche, like a tsunami, obscuring everything in its path. First the shoreline, then the fields, the forest, the town. It lingered for a while before receding.
Go on.
There was no one left. The fog took them, all of them. At least that's what I thought at first glance. Turned out there were others who escaped the fog somehow. Me and the sheriff, she was paying a friendly visit. I was above it all. It didn't touch us.
All right, that confirms the sheriff's story.
That night it was deathly quiet. The fog around the island obscured everything, sight and sound. One or two people tried to leave. They walked into that thick mist, and all we heard were the screams.
Bit like the Stephen King novel, eh?
The next morning with the dawn came the townsfolk returning from the sea, like one of my stories, followed by what the Wabanaki once called the Pale Men, the Draug. That's when I decided to stay put and keep writing. There's a strange inspiration to be found in imprisonment.
Well, we'll leave the man to the hell of his own creation. Alright, so jump cut. I'm going to get down to that section down there and go over it, and then probably the last of the, interesting effect, the last of the eastern coast. Alrighty then, we're going to use my magic bee powers and just take the short route. Boom! Can't fly, but at least I seem to be nearly weightless. But yeah, down here, besides the wreck of this trawler, is of course another Draug beachhead. Haha, beachhead. Where they're attempting to create their own army. Now, as I mentioned before, there's some filth-infested zombies out here. Oh, don't get excited. I'm not here for much. And as you watch, yes, the zombies and the Draug are fighting because the filth zombies are controlled directly by the Dreamers, while the Draug are controlled by Beaumont. If you had... Whoa, you is ugly. Oh, that's good. Seem to be doing quite a bit of, boss killing lately. Okay, but if you head down here to the south, you can actually see the initial filth infection. Up there, past all of these guys, is the Filth Well. Now, this seems to be a state of continuous siege, with the Draug attempting to take the island just as they are with the Hellspawn, away from the hulking zombies. I do like the fact I've gotten to the point where they just kind of ignore me. But the zombies are here to try to protect the Filth Well, which is their source of power, with their biggest one right here. You do not touch my cat. Oh, look out. Kitty? Alright, you're fine. Yes, somebody, a filth-infected city worker, in fact, has been filling up this filth barrels of these from this well to create traps. That would create, of course, more of these zombies. Now, I'll show you where the traps are over here, but again, rather than just manually walking, I'll pop over there. Alrighty then. Now, we're back up here, just south of the lighthouse on the Savage Coast, and you guys are making entirely too much noise. Thank you. Now, as you can see, the fire lanes have actually dwindled down to jogging paths, which the city has taken advantage of. And this portion on the southeast portion of the Savage Coast is pretty much given over to tourism. Sorry, some of the locals are getting frisky. But as you can see, it's a nice little jogging path, and you will find the occasional zombie jogger on it as well. Interesting. And these are the filth barrels I was telling you about, the ones that have been loaded up. Now, I can't actually destroy them unless the quest is active, which makes their whole point as a trap, you know, kind of questionable. Sorry, just don't like all the noise pollution. And the paths go down here for quite a bit. What was that about? Never a good idea, you know, when the ground shakes. Now, taking the left over here, we continue along what's called Suicide Bluffs, and given the darker nature of this game, I'm gonna guess I know where that comes from. As you can see, there's no safety rails up here, and those those are the spikes that we can put zombie bodies on to attract, you know, other zombies to jump off the cliff. Now down there, that's the path over to the Filth Well. And here is a rest area, overlooking scenic Suicide Bluffs. Seriously though, the town fathers should reconsider. And in that name, it just doesn't sound tourist friendly. I mean, as you can see, the crows here are hanging out, heading by the best view on the southeast coast. You can see for miles now. You just kind of wish you couldn't. But over here by this still primed car alarm and public bathroom. Yeah, what's really funny is that if you kill that thing, you start a mission where you can make a supply run over to the Sam Krieg, and I'm really, really sorry I did that. Yeah, you can pick up some of these cans and bottles, and mostly beer, and give it to him. But here's one that's a little weird. Survival of the Dead. A bottle has a message here. According to the message, there are survivors holed up on the south end of the island near Solomon's End. Peculiar the bottle is here, though. Someone must have intentionally put it here, but why? That bottle didn't travel far, and help can come from without. Perhaps it can come from within. Go to the beach and check on the survivors. Yeah, survivors in air quotes, really. As you can see, here at the very southern end, over what I call myself Stormwatch, and don't mind that. I just forgot to turn the notifications off. There is a group of houses. Now, these have, yep, there's the survivors for you, the undead. It's been far, far too late for to save anyone. All we can do is put them to peace temporarily. Yeah, so we have a good touristy sort of place here. I wonder if it's actually an inn, or does somebody have a rather expensive view? But yeah, this and Crabzilla over there are all that's left. So, the question is, though, who threw away that bottle? Give me a moment. I'm going to take care of the, yet another giant monster. Hi, kitty. But yes, this one I think has more of the look of an inn. Yeah, dissolve faster. But yeah, during its day, I'm sure it was a wonderful place to hang out. Although, not much protection from the storm, just the height. So my guess is those windows had to be cleaned a lot. And you are... That is just gross. Excuse me. Slaver? No human trafficking here. And you die. But on this granite shelf here, you can see the south end of the island. Over there is the academy, and like I said, they'll be getting its own episode. Just a second. Get back here. I don't need to kill you. I need to kill one more of you. But yes. Remember, the reason the raider counts as a survivor for this mission is if you recall that they all started as human zombies. So technically, that guy was killed, became a zombie, got impregnated, and then became a drog. I know. Really not a happy ending. And, well, hey. At least we have to see a respawn, which kind of means that... You know, I kind of wonder sometimes... Does the gender matter in the gender of the original zombie? I mean, do all the girls become... Yeah, that's Kristen's... Not exactly a typical message, but it is typical for the coast. Just telling you that you're doing okay by wiping out all these random hotspots because she needs the entire island locked down. But yes, down here, that's the academy. We'll cover that later. So let's head inland, shall we? Taking the path up by the beach houses here, round about the ridge. Oh, be quiet. So many people trying to photobomb. Coming around to the other side, you can see there's some more bluffs and circumventing the school. Hang on, it's going to be a bit of a walk, so let me jump cut. Okay, this is where I want to be. Henderson's Field, the last part of our little tour. Now, this area is just to the east of the academy and to the west of the lighthouse. Odds are, unless you're on a mission, either Jack's back or a side mission where you're tracking down the scarecrows that killed a particular hiker, you're not going to stumble onto it as it tends to be tucked away by the bluffs. But yes, this is Henderson's old farm. And his murderous scarecrows have been reactivated by the dark power of the fogs. Now remember, these count as zombies because there's bodies in there. Although the pedophilic ones kind of disgust me. Then, of course, as there is a pumpkin patch nearby, there are wisps. And where there are wisps, there will be Jack. Although he doesn't activate unless you have the appropriate mission. But through here, you can see the posts that contained the... Well, I guess these must have contained the... Must have contained the murderous scarecrow's inactive state, which means somebody was keeping him up here, and frankly, I don't know who was dumb enough to do that, so my guess is Illuminati. But, as you can see, we are looping back around. Excuse me, that's disgusting. To Solomon Road, and as you can see, that heads back down towards the south coast and heads north back up to the main town. So we've gone more or less in a full circle here along the entire east coast of the island. So I'm going to call this episode here. It's running a bit long, and probably next time we'll tackle either the academy or the amusement park. But if you've got a preference for either one, just let me know down in the comments. Okay, this is Fantastic Worlds, saying farewell from Lovecraft Country and the Secret World Interludes.
You will see the dawning of a new age. To be a monarch or a beggar.
Someone's exceeding expectations. I'm not specifically saying it's you, so go ahead and infer whatever psychs you up more.